With My Hero Academia Vigilantes in the spotlight recently, it's been great to see the All Might we all know and love once again. And when speaking of anime's greatest superheroes, All Might is a fantastic candidate who comes to mind almost immediately. And as one of the heroes who's earned much admiration across the world, we're going to see how All Might would do against the formidable monsters of One Punch Man's Season 1. If this gets a lot of likes and you guys enjoy it, then we can crack on with Season 2 and beyond for the next one. So like this video to up the chances. For this scenario, we will be using the version of a peak All Might who is not held back by his weakened condition. One who is able to lock in and use his physical capabilities to the maximum in the unforgiving world of One Punch Man. Going by official handbooks and in-series claims when referring to these two characters, we can more or less narratively assume that Shigaraki and Deku's peak are around the level of a prime All Might. So regardless of how much you do or don't agree with that notion, that's what we will use for this video to at least keep some level of power understanding. If you're watching this video, I'm going to assume you're familiar with All Might and that you know exactly what the symbol of peace is all about. So before we get to smashing these rankings, let's get these tierings explained. Texas Smash indicates low difficulty. All Might is easily above these threats and can style on them with a smile. Detroit Smash means while they're not weak by any means, some focused offense from All Might should sit them down for a permanent rest. United States of Smash indicates that All Might has been pushed to go more or less all out in some way or another, using all of his available repertoire to ensure the safety of the people. Plus Ultra takes that a step above and shows All Might had to dig deeper than ever and barely overcame the battle, standing tall after a brutally taxing victory. And finally, send assistance. While we all love All Might, it's clear that this encounter is too much for him alone, and he's going to need a certain bald hero to step in and save the day. Now, it's time to go beyond plus Ultra, because All Might is here. What better way to start than with the monster who helped kickstart Saitama into becoming a full-fledged hero, Crablante. While those bloodstained pincers would be trouble for you and I, this would be easy work for All Might, who has more than enough power to handle any pinches from the murderous crab. Nipples drawn on his chest with a permanent marker will be the least of his worries, with All for One set to give him a very crabby time. Texas Smash for Crablante. The Subterranean King is up next, and while we didn't really get to see what he was truly made of out in the real world before Saitama used him as a landing pad, it was clear he wasn't anywhere close to the version we saw in the dream world. Texas Smash for the Subterranean King, who'd be All Might's knuckle cushion. Stomping into the video like he stomped out that unfortunate city, Beefcake would be the steroids titan if he were in AOT, able to kill tens of thousands with a single attack. While very imposing, All Might has enough strength in his hands to put this behemoth down with a few very stern smashes. However, simply due to the sheer size and scope of this man, it might take All Might a moment or two to figure out the best way to attack him effectively. And surely for a man of his size and destructive capacity, it will need one of All Might's hardest hits to sit him down for good. United States of Smash for Beefcake, with the size difference possibly causing some awkwardness for All Might. Contrasting muscle to a far sleeker look now, Mosquito Girl buzzes onto the scene for a duel with All Might, and while she's a sucker for blood, a knuckle sandwich is on the menu from our dear symbol of peace. All Might can counteract her swans with the winds caused from his physical movements, and has enough power to swat this monster into the Detroit Smash section. Following the House of Evolution chain, Kamakyuri drops in to restore the insect name, but goes down all the same. Granted, he was labelled to be one of the better fighters in their establishment. That naturally means he should be around the same level as Mosquito Girl or Armored Gorilla, putting him in Detroit Smash despite having no chance to show us his skills after Saitama one-shot him. Armored Gorilla, as mentioned seconds ago, would have that cybernetic advantage to call upon, but granted he lost to Genos, who lost to Mosquito Girl, he sits somewhere around the same level in Detroit Smash. Ground Dragons seem to be one of the weaker types in their little posse, mainly used for sneak attacks, so I imagine he'll hold up even less in the face of overwhelming strength when confronted, leaving him buried in Texas Smash tier for his Diglett impression. However, Beast King is not made of the same stuff, with claw swipes that the mere shockwaves from could slice buildings into pieces with. There's no surprise he's the second best in the House of Evolution. While I think All Might has him handily covered in all areas, those claws could be devastating if not dealt with carefully, nudging Beast King up into the United States of Smash tier. And we can't forget about Carnage Kabuto, can we? No, we cannot. The first biggest test of this tier list for All Might, that is for sure. Highly dangerous, Carnage Kabuto would absolutely push the limits of All Might. Once in Carnage mode, the overwhelming pressure and brutality would be tap dancing upon the eyebrows of All Might with unforgiving power behind every single motion. If we go by the notion that it took Darkshine around 15 minutes to defeat Kabuto during his simulation, then we can expect All Might to fall somewhere around the same region, given that I'd personally have him around the middle point of S-Class, possibly going a bit higher or lower depending on the context. However, with Darkshine's indestructible body, I'm sure it allowed him to take more impact than All Might's exterior will be able to endure, ensuring this will be a far more painful experience for him. And yet, with the determination we once saw from him where he traded blows with a shock absorption Nomu until it could no longer take any more despite that being what it was made for, that same determination will carry him through Kabuto's Carnage mode, and for that I have him passing with plus ultra after a grueling battle. No rest for the heroic in this tier list though, since we have the Sea's ruler ascending from the waves to claim dominion over Earth. Deep Sea King's attempts to massacre the inferior species of land dwellers looks good on paper until All Might scrunches it up into a ball and United States of smashes it against his head. A powerful foe with factors such as regeneration, acid spit, and rain enhanced attributes to keep in mind, we know from experience that Deep Sea King is one tough customer who isn't afraid to play dirty in addition to that frightening physicality. However, with Season 1 Genos being a match for him before foul tactics led to the Cyborg's defeat, it's clear that a Prime All Might has enough quality in his product to leave the Deep Sea King as royal sushi. One for All turns the Sea's Monarch into fish food with a very fun United States of Smash level scrap. Beast King, Deep Sea King, and now Ancient King. All Might is turning into something of a Kingslayer today. Shout out to Jaime Lannister, because this is another one to go on the United States of Smash tier. It was stated he didn't act on his goals to dominate Earth until Deep Sea King, Subterranean King, and Beast King were out of the picture, so it's safe to assume he believed fights against them would be dicey, so he should, by deduction, be around their level. I know this also poses the idea that Subterranean King should be higher than Texas Smash, but in contrast to the other three kings, he looked so comically underwhelming and under par with how he was waving his swords around like a hippie's arms on World Peace Day that I cannot in good faith believe he's capable of the same stuff Deep Sea King or Beast King were. Kombu Infinity took care of A-class heroes with ease in Season 1 and has great weapons with such tentacle-like combo at its disposal. However, All Might should be too fast and too hard hitting for the monster to get into gear efficiently. All Might could take a few cuts on the way in, or if spotted at distance, but either way he'd get the job done with the Detroit Smash, which is where this monster tears after whipping their hair back and forth. Okay, I don't listen to a lot of mainstream music, so you'll have to tell me if I did that song reference correctly. Geryuganshoop. 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 What a name. It's easy not to think of this guy as anything serious because of how he was handled against Saitama, but he is very legit, and this is very tough. This alien is capable of flinging objects at sub-light speed and is said to hold power around the same level as Boros' other generals, more or less putting him in the range of Melzargard, who fought 4 S-class heroes at once, even if he was being used as a punching bag for most of it. As a dragon level threat, he's nothing to be scoffed at when you don't have Saitama's level of power. Added in that he can increase the forces of gravity around a certain point, said to even be able to do it with the force of a black hole, Geryuganshoop is a mighty psychic handful for many heroes. However, since we never saw him being able to manipulate people directly in the way Tatsumaki can, at least not from my memory, I'm going to give this to All Might in the United States of Smash tier. I'm banking that he can use his speed to outmaneuver the psychic and eventually land something heavy enough to overcome the onslaught of telekinetic attacks and keep away from gravity distortion with his relativistic movement. If this alien was tankier, I'd put him in plus ultra, but I don't think he is. so I think All Might just needs the right chances to settle it. Melzargard is another story though. With the power to shrug off numerous S-class level attacks, regenerate from practically anything unless his marbles are compromised, and dish out threatening strikes of his own which can cut, smash and pierce at fatal level, this is not a monster to take lightly for All Might. It's worth noting that some people underestimate this monster based on his performance, but he was having to split his attention and offense between 4 S-class heroes, 2 of which are among the best of them, and he could have possibly killed Prisoner if not for Silverfang's deflection. The question comes down to whether or not All Might can figure out the system behind his regeneration while handling Melzargard's full attention alone. If he doesn't, then he is defeated by Melzargard after a long and drawn out fight where All Might is eventually whittled down. However, if Metalbat can figure it out, then I'm sure All Might can figure it out too, and because of that, I'd say All Might can stay in the fight long enough to beat down and batter those blue marbles piece by piece until the general can no longer represent Boros out on the field. All Might is going to struggle, and it's going to be hard, and he likely comes close to death in the process if Melzargard manages to catch him with some direct hits. But I am going to have faith in the symbol of peace and say he clutches up with a plus ultra tiering. Groribas is a funky one because we saw Saitama one-shot him with ease and it looked incredibly casual, but according to Geryuganshoop, he's the best warrior in Boros' army, which should include Melzargard, so he is around that level, albeit with a focus for acidic attacks rather than regeneration, which is its own spicy pit of fuckery to deal with at dragon level threat, if vomited Fura Ugly's acid is anything to go by. By that narrative deduction, it'd be another plus ultra worthy test for All Might, with the main challenge being to avoid that dragon threat level acid. And before we get to the Dominator of the universe, there's someone else who wants a word. Vaccine Man!
Who the fuck is that guy?
Yeah, it's easy for many to forget this Piccolo-looking powerhouse because Saitama defeated him so early in the series. But man, this guy is one hell of a problem. In fact, he's who I'd say is the most powerful monster in the entirety of Season 1 aside from Boros. This monster is essentially Dragon Ball Z Light. In mere moments, he can eradicate entire cities with energy balls, causing disastrous explosions with the greatest of ease, and step out from the center of such destruction without even a scratch upon him. Vaccine Man was even said to have perhaps been the most powerful mysterious being to have ever appeared up to that point within history. In just his base form, he effortlessly swatted away over 30 heroes during his rampage, and he was able to devastate entire cities with his sheer strength and explosive output, with his abilities set up to now to be even greater when transformed. Labeled a dragon level threat immediately, Vaccine Man seemingly held no single weakness, but instead harbored overwhelming destructive power through both physical and energy-based means, with the addition of flight on top. Such is his suggested power, the guidebook uses terms associated with his arrival such as Judgment Day and mankind is doomed. To put it in a nutshell, this monster was basically taking out entire cities in seconds without even going into second gear while just in his base form. This show might have ended up being called Two Antenna Man if Saitama didn't exist in this universe. The only thing Vaccine Man did wrong, clearly, was ending up in the way of Caped Baldy. But All Might is not Saitama, and this is one monster who asks too much from the symbol of peace. Send assistance for Vaccine Man, because everything in sight is at risk if this monster is not confronted by the strongest heroes of One Punch Man. We come to the granddaddy of Season 1. I know you've had your eye on this one, no pun intended, and you're right, it's as simple as you think it is. Boros, the Dominator of the universe, is simply too much for anyone within the Hero Association who isn't named Saitama or Blast. With strikes that can launch people to the moon, speed that melts spaceships and beams which can destroy planets, It's pretty clear that Boros would have All Might overwhelmed in every single category if he ever were to stand across from Season 1's final boss. It's very likely that Boros would not even need to enter Meteor Burst to achieve victory. However, All Might may do well enough to break him from his sealed armor at the maximum. I'm a huge All Might fan, so I would have loved for him to clear this list. However, these last two opponents are simply too monstrous for the Symbol of Peace to overcome alone. So like Vaccine Man, Boros sits securely with the Send Assistance category since he is stronger than all the monsters within this video. Thus, our journey is now complete, with All Might having given himself a mighty respectable showing in the world of One Punch Man Season 1. Did he do better than you expected? Worse than you expected? Or right on the money? And let me know in the comments which of these battles would be the coolest fight to watch. For me, I think the most exciting would be a desperate, all-out war of sheer power between Carnage, Kabuto, and All Might. Be sure to like the video, subscribe for more One Punch Man content, and support by becoming a member on Patreon or YouTube if you want to go beyond Plus Ultra. Catch you next time.